There exists a fear so subtle and pervasive that it can shape an entire lifetime. Not through loud panic attacks, but through a constant whisper in the mind, a rhythmic tapping of self-interrogation every time we are about to open up, to reach out, to be ourselves. It is the fear of rejection, a feeling that acts like a prophecy of unworthiness, that our self-worth is a fragile commodity needing others' approval to exist. Have you ever wondered why a gentle rejection from a stranger, a shake of the head in a meeting, or an unanswered message can feel like a deep wound, tangible evidence for our own worst suspicions? To understand the primal power of this fear, we must delve deeper than surface emotions, down to where psychology, evolutionary biology, and the narratives that form our identity intersect, creating an ancient alarm system that still rings in the modern world. Instinctively, the fear of rejection is not merely about bruised pride. It is a survival mechanism deeply encoded in our evolutionary history. In the context of our human ancestors, being cast out from the tribe, rejected from the group, was synonymous with a death sentence. Social isolation meant vulnerability to predators, lack of access to food and shelter, and ultimately, a diminished chance of passing on genes. Consequently, our brains developed an exquisitely sensitive warning system, the social threat system, where rejection is processed in similar brain regions as when we experience physical pain. This explains why criticism can literally hurt. However, in today's world, where survival no longer depends on being accepted by every member of the village, this alarm system often overreacts, turning every potential social interaction into an existential threat to our psychological safety. To decode the specific workings of this fear, we can examine three main psychological frameworks, each painting a different quadrant of this complex picture. The first group can be understood through the lens of attachment theory, originating from the work of John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth. Our earliest experiences with caregivers, their consistency, emotional availability, and responsiveness form an internal working model of self and others. A child with an insecure attachment style, such as an anxious style, may grow up with a core belief that I am not good enough to be loved unconditionally. For them, each present-day rejection is not just a singular event. It is a painful confirmation of that primal story, yet another piece of evidence that they could be abandoned at any moment. They may become hypervigilant to rejection cues, interpreting neutrality or inattention as rebuff, and spend immense mental energy testing others' attachment, creating a vicious cycle of anxiety and behavior that may inadvertently push people away. Conversely, someone with an avoidant attachment style may proactively reject others before they themselves face the risk of rejection, building walls and claiming not to need closeness, while in truth protecting a fragile self from pain they have felt or anticipated long ago. The second group is illuminated by cognitive theory, and specifically the concept of contingent self-esteem. According to psychologist Mark Leary and the Sociometer Theory, we constantly monitor our level of acceptance or rejection by others, using it as a social meter to gauge our self-worth. When an individual builds most of their self-esteem on external factors, achievements, appearance, status, number of likes, they have placed their being on an extremely precarious foundation. Each rejection becomes a direct blow to their cognitive core self. Their brain engages in a process called attributional inference, where they attribute the cause of the rejection entirely to personal, stable, and comprehensive shortcomings. I was rejected not because the idea wasn't a good fit, but because I am fundamentally not smart enough. This dichotomous thinking turns every interaction into an ultimate test of worthiness, leading to avoidance behaviors, procrastination, and a reluctance to challenge oneself. They may become perfectionists who never finish projects, or individuals who never voice their true opinions, because not participating is safer than participating in facing potential negative judgment. Finally, the third group relates to the social identity model and the fear of losing group affiliation. Humans are inherently inclined to categorize themselves into social groups, and our value is partly derived from membership in these groups. Rejection, especially from a group we value, threatens to shatter not only personal relationships, but also our sense of identity and belonging. This is why being excluded from a friend group, being rejected in a job interview we crave, or even receiving online criticism can trigger an emotional earthquake. That rejection doesn't just say your behavior is not suitable, but implies you do not belong here. It triggers feelings of shame, the sense that one's entire self is seen and judged as inadequate. To protect themselves, some individuals may preemptively adopt a rigid or extreme social identity, or conversely, withdraw entirely from seeking group affiliation, choosing isolation as a way to control the pain they know so well. So what are we left with? An ancient alarm system, narratives formed in early childhood, and a society that often encourages evaluating self-worth through the eyes of others. The profound truth lies in this. The fear of rejection is rarely truly about the other person or the specific situation. It speaks of the story we tell ourselves about who is worthy of love, of being seen, of belonging. The journey to lessen the grip of this fear is not to erase it, for it is part of our biological and emotional heritage, but to change our relationship with it. It is about learning to distinguish between the false alarm of the ancient social threat system and truly constructive feedback. It is about building an identity and self-esteem resilient enough from within so that a rejection can be felt as a disappointment, a piece of data, even a guide, rather than a final verdict. And perhaps above all, it is about recognizing that true courage is not living without the fear of rejection, but carrying with you a deep understanding of its psychological roots and still choosing to let yourself be seen, be known, and live fully, even when, especially when, that whisper of doubt still echoes. Because a life defined by the avoidance of pain is a life that shrinks. And in that shrinkage, we may be rejecting our own greatest potential and most meaningful connections.